and they're like, where are you from? I'd say Maryland.
No, you wouldn't.
Because that's where I came from.
That's not true.
Because I moved around so much, I would tell people I'm from LA when I lived in LA. When they would ask, where are you from? I'm from LA. I've been there 7 years.
You are one of the rare people who does that.
If I went to California and there was an article written and something happened and they were like, California man, something, something. Yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida. You're a Florida man. No. Dave, what's his name? Does that?
No.
So anyway, you're wrong.
In this video, we joined Tim Pool on Timcast IRL. While Tim Pool and his co-hosts are discussing CNN's framing of Tim's appearance in the White House press room, out of nowhere, a huge argument breaks out. With that, let's watch Tim Pool lash out at his co-host and crush the liberal mainstream media.
Who is, I would consider him to be an ideological driven individual, an activist, masquerading as a journalist, is calling the White House press a freak show. The night that the day that I went there, he goes on TV and then says it's a freak show. Here's the clip.
The problem is that the right wing, hello, Scott, has taken advantage of this situation, I think, quite cleverly, quite wisely. They've played into a weakness.
What situation?
The situation of media being under attack. And so they've created a situation where...
You've almost got it. Keep going. What the right wing is taking advantage of is finally the American people saying enough is enough. They're tired of feeling like the mass media screens out one viewpoint versus another in political coverage. They're tired of media institutions favoring one party over another. They're tired of narratives over factual stories. If I had any advice for 60 Minutes or anybody else, it would be just cover the news and try to be fair about it and stop putting your finger on the scale, especially during campaigns.
You're talking about the old mass media myth that you could have this thing that was in the middle. The Walter Cronkite saying, that's the way it is, when it wasn't for many Americans the way it was. When people were pissed off.
But people back in those days trusted the media, did they not?
No, they just couldn't be heard. Because there was no two-way. Now we have the internet.
Look at the Gallup polling. It was here, and now it's here. It's fallen off of a cliff.
Yeah, we do have that Gallup polling about trust
Look at that.
in media. And now, as in recent years, and let's be honest, Scott, a lot of this is driven by the rhetoric on your side of the aisle. I mean, it's not,
you think it's driven by the rhetoric and not the performance?
Absolutely.
So my point is this. If you're...
Well, I actually agree with Abby Phillips, driven by the rhetoric of truth. When you're saying things like the very fine people hoax, it was a hoax. Trump never said that. We had a journalist on the show just a couple days ago, Tara Palmieri, who after 10 years, it's been 8 years, she still didn't know this. Trump never called Nazis very fine people. She thought he did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I would simply question...
With that information, she pushed back on the idea that there was anyone there worth defending.
I question why someone purporting to be a journalist never actually watched the video or read the transcript. She just believed it.
So if you don't know it's there, you don't even know how to look for it.
Scott, what do you mean? If someone says to me, Tim, did you hear that Trump punched a baby? I'll say, prove it. I'll say, show me the video. Show me the transcript, and I want sources. I will literally say, source. Where are you getting that from? I want evidence it happened. So on this show, we do our best, but nobody's perfect. And I'll even give that credit to corporations. Sometimes they get things wrong unintentionally. They largely intentionally make things false. The Covington smear. Not a single one of these people decided to actually look at what happened with the Covington kids. And we're going back.
I've seen that Scott Jennings clip before, and you know what jumps out to me is when Abby Phillips says, let's be honest, a lot of this is caused by rhetoric from your side of the aisle. That is a perfect encapsulation of Democrats, liberals, the mainstream liberal media, never taking accountability for their role in the situation, never looking inward. And I guess that's a good thing if you're a conservative, because if that's truly their attitude, they're just going to continue to lose trust in people. And the fact that one guy that was railing against new media wasn't aware of the fact that public trust in the media has dropped off a cliff like every single year since the 60s and 70s. That's bananas too. He said something like, oh, people just didn't have a voice back then. No, they have polling from all the way back then. And even wokey Abby Phillip didn't disagree with it. I mean, the facts are the facts. She pulled up the graphic that showed it very clearly in black and white. I think that guy who's railing on the new media is just part of the establishment, old-time media apparatus that's dying in front of our eyes. And clearly he's not aware of what's going on if he didn't even know that the public has lost trust significantly in the media. But let's get back to the video.
years, but now the Maryland man hoax.
I got to talk about that. Okay, if I see both sides of this Maryland man thing. If I moved to California and some shit went down,
Ian, where are you from?
Ohio, but I'm from Maryland because I live in Maryland.
You're not from Maryland.
If someone asked me where are you from, if I was in Germany and they're like, "Where are you from?" I'd say Maryland.
No, you wouldn't,
because that's where I came from.
That's not true.
Because I moved around so much, I would tell people I'm from LA when I lived in LA. When they would ask, "Where are you from?" I'm from LA. I've been there 7 years.
You are one of the rare people who does that.
If I went to California and there was an article written and something happened and they were like, "California man, something something," yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida. You're a Florida man. Dave, what's his name? Does that?
No.
So anyway, that's
you're wrong.
State of mind. Is they.
No, it's not.
You can write it up as such if I'm residing in there.
If you're lying to people.
Well, these people, this guy's an El Salvadorian, and they're intentionally trying to spin it like he's an American Maryland dude.
That's the point.
So
they're intentionally lying. They're pushing a hoax. And Hassan Piker, did you know this? Hassan did not know the guy was from El Salvador. One of the most prominent leftist streamers, speaking to millions of people, and in his mind, he saw CNN, he saw ABC, he saw these outlets, and he was like, "This guy's from Maryland. I can't believe Trump would deport him." I would be as mad at Trump as he was if I thought Trump took a guy from Maryland and sent him to a foreign country. That's not what happened.
It should have said El Salvadorian man residing in Maryland. It should have said that.
That's what the New York Times said today, and I said, "Thank you." Despite the fact that they're lying about everything else.
So it's like the whole thing. They're like, we weren't lying. He was residing in Maryland, therefore Maryland man. I get it, but you were intentional. This was a thing about a guy that was deported to El Salvador, and he was El Salvadorian. You can't leave that out.
Yeah, Trump, with a heart twice as big, he brought Abrego Garcia home. Thank you, Trump.
Thank you for letting me.
Let me play the rest of this clip because Jarvis calls us freaks.
For CBS or any other news outlet, the reason that you have lost trust ought to be obvious to you, and the way to fix it also ought to be obvious to you, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump and everything to do with the product. Just try to make a better product that appeals to more people, and the way you appeal to more people is by not crapping on half or more than half of the country because of their values and political viewpoints.
I think that is
what you'd end up with in that press room then is, and these are my words, the freak show that Trump wants. Trump tries to devalue media. Why should we value his freak show there? Leave it to the freaks.
I think calling them freaks.
Leave it to the freaks.
I don't think there's any disagreement on that, by the way.
I mean, he called these new media sources the freak show. They're not freaks. They have audiences.
Some of them are.
They have audiences, and there's a reason that they're thriving is because people are starved for information that they think they can trust. They're not freaks. They're filling a need in this country, in my opinion.
All right.
He said they're freaks. So why do these freaks have more viewership, more further reach? It's because that is the elitist disdain they have for each and every one of you. To those of you who are loyal viewers of Timcast IRL,
if you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
I saw many of you were posting messages thanking me for being there and congratulating me for being there. Some people were saying, "How dare you, Tim, not wear a suit?" I got those messages too. But the people who watch the show watch it because you trust us. Like Scott Jennings says, we fill a need. This show only has an audience because we must be doing something right. We have made a good product. I read the news all day, every day. I do a morning show. If I don't do the morning show, I don't got nothing for the nightly show. It's very hard to do Timcast IRL because the pre-production and research is my morning show. I read hundreds of articles every day. I'm reading tweets, I'm watching videos, I'm fact-checking things. And then when it comes to Timcast IRL, I largely have read everything in the day, and I have a general idea of what these stories are. Jeff Jarvis doesn't do anything. He's a professor at a university. He doesn't actually work in media, and he's calling all of us freaks. The people in that room are uncurious. They don't fact-check. They don't know that Trump never called Nazis very fine people. They don't know that Abrego Garcia is from El Salvador. And they don't bother to investigate. And I'll say this too, as much as a lot of people were very much entertained by Attar's appearance, and I very much enjoyed the conversation and the arguments and the debate, she did not know what was in the Signalgate texts, okay? Her understanding of these stories as a Brooklyn-based journalist is surface level. We've gone over those texts thousands of times. Like, not literally thousands, you know what I mean? We've done the stories over and over and over again.
Look at this, just off the top of their head, Tim and the crew at Timcast IRL can immediately think of multiple examples where mainstream media figures or alternative media, I guess, or new media on the left like Hassan literally don't know the basic facts of a story. I mean, are you even a journalist at that point? I mean, how long ago was the Covington thing? How long ago was the Very Fine People hoax? And now we've got the El Salvador man thing. Specifically with Hassan Piker, I'm not taking anything away from his success, but his career, his appeal really baffles me. And it could be just a lack of understanding on my part, but the guy seems to be wrong so often about so many things. And here's what I'm convinced of. Based on the way I've seen him incorrectly report on things, it just seems like he reads headlines and then forms an opinion of what he read. I mean, the obvious example is this Maryland man thing where it sounds like he read a headline and he's like, they're deporting an American citizen from Maryland. And I wouldn't be able to make such a blanket statement that, oh, I think he just reads headlines. If it was just based on that, I mean, that's pretty embarrassing, but I've seen it time and time again. And I'm not looking at any of my old stuff, but he seems to just have knee-jerk reactions to a headline and spews all this nonsense. Then he just gets people firing at him saying, are you insane? Have you actually read what's going on? And then he just yells and screams at them and gets mad. And all of his fans are like, yeah, liberals are great. But yeah, just kind of back to my point earlier, Scott Jennings again put it great. He said, instead of calling other people names and saying what's wrong with everybody else, make a better product. And in my opinion, the way you do that is tell the truth. And maybe instead of editorializing every single thing, just report the news. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
So when I'm having a conversation about them, I'm like, I think I had to read those things like 15 times within an hour. From sourcing the story and trying to understand it, to reading it during the show, to sharing with other people, to explaining to those who are going to be editing or putting clips together or something like that, what part of I'm reading the text over and over and over again. And so when it comes to a conversation, I'm like, I know what's in those texts. I know what was said. I could probably paraphrase each text. I've read it so much. These journalists that are in the White House, they show up and their editor's like, ask her about this. And they go, okay. And then they don't even know what they're talking about. That's normal to these people. But when anybody with an opposing viewpoint is finally let in, to the elites, it's a freak show. But I would like to say this. I want to give a heartfelt thank you to Jeff Jarvis for everything he's done to help me in my career. The advice he had given me at the start of my career was invaluable. His invitation to the Knight Foundation award ceremony at CUNY was an honor, and I will.
Clearly, the public is clamoring for someone they can trust in media, and that's how this new media has emerged, and that's why more people are getting their news from platforms like YouTube or X or wherever. So really, it's the legacy media's failure that offered people like Tim and others to fill a need. But we want to hear from you. What did you think about Tim's comments? What did you think about Scott Jennings' comments? And what did you think about the legacy news guys' comments about Tim? Let us know. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.